Okay, so the first email we received is, what do you think Rabbi Steinsaltz would say on how to stay hopeful and positive during this current unknown of COVID and the unrest and bigotry that is taking place right now? Rabbi Steinsaltz was a man who really wanted to change the world, but he knew that in order to change the world, you have to start from within. And he started from within himself. He was most demanding on himself. He didn't work at all. I'm sorry, he didn't rest at all, didn't take any vacation. I know that when I would want to speak with him, the best time for me to call him was at 3 o'clock in the morning, his time, because I knew that then he was in his office working on his Talmud or on his books and whatever else he was working on. And he was a man that took upon himself more projects than I think any human being I know has taken upon himself. So he knew that change needed to start from within. And therefore he focused on the within. I'm getting to the answer to this question. And therefore he also focused on changing people from within. And therefore what he would tell us during these times is that don't pay attention too much to what is without, but pay much more attention to what is within. You are in control of yourself. You're not in control of what is outside of yourself. So the things that you are in control of, work on, develop, change if they need change, or express if they need expression. But make sure that this is yourself, that soul within is your main focus, if not your sole focus during these times. Yes, there's a lot of distress. Yes, there's a lot of uncertainties. Yes, there's a lot of bigotry, as you say in this email. Yes, there's a lot of noise around, all sorts of noises. That we can't control. But Rabbi Steinsaltz was a man who knew that change again needs to begin from within. So focus on that within. Focus on that which you can change. To be as practical as possible. And I think Rabbi Steinsaltz would tell us, as he told me many times, because he was a very pragmatic man, as much of a genius as he was also a very down-to-earth man. And he would tell us, so then make a list of things that you can focus on each and every day, not just, general things, but each and every day. Maybe today you can focus on your children. And if that has to be on the list, then put hours next to those items. If it's your children, from 5 to 7 p.m., you'll be with your children. That you have full control of. Maybe today you can focus on prayer, and maybe praying even more than usual. Maybe saying a Tehillim for yourself, for your family, for the world, a chapter from Psalm. Add that to your schedule too. Put an hour next to that item. And make a list of those values, those things that you are fully in control of, those things that come from within, and focus on those. That, I think, is what he would tell us. The rest is God's department. That will fall in place somehow, somewhere, sometime. But we have to be able to be fully in control of here, because change really begins from within, as he so often taught. So that's. I hope that answers this question or this proposition here. I think we received one more email, Janet. No? Let me go back.
Question. It wasn't a question though. It was just a
statement. Yeah. Right. So I'll read it nonetheless, because I do fully agree with that. And I think that Rabbi Steinsaltz would say how very fortunate one feels when life is near its end. And personal contribution has been the most important element of life. Gratitude for the opportunity to make a difference. That's how a person would feel, and that's maybe how Rabbi Steinsaltz felt as he neared his end. Gratitude for the opportunity to having been able to make a difference in this world. So I'll say this, I'm going to quote again Rabbi Steinsaltz. I heard him once say that one who is concerned about life will not be concerned about death. One who is not concerned about life will be concerned about death. What does that mean? That means if you're concerned about life and about living your life to the fullest and seizing every opportunity that God gives you and ensuring that each and every day you actualize your purpose, then when death comes, you'll say to yourself, oh, okay, well, I did my best. I can look back and say, I gave it the best shot I could. And I fulfilled all these things. And when death comes, you won't be too concerned about death, because you will have lived a fulfilled and purposeful life. But if you are not concerned about life, then you'll be concerned about death, which again means that if you live life in a squandering way, if nothing is important for you, if you have no desire to really live meaningfully, if your purpose comes second or third or fourth or fifth on your list, or doesn't come at all on your list, then death will come. God forbid, you'll say to yourself, where's my life, God? I've wasted so many years. I've lived completely recklessly. Then you'll be concerned about death. And I think that's true for Rabbi Steinsaltz. He lived one of the most fulfilled lives I think we've seen in Jewish history. The man that has changed the landscape of Jewish history, of the world altogether, by making Jewish study accessible to all. No one did that. Even Rashi only did the Bible and some of the Talmud. Rabbi Steinsaltz made the Bible accessible. I'm not just talking about the 5 books of Moses, the Torah. I'm talking about the prophets. I'm talking about the scriptures, the whole Bible. He made it accessible with translation, the Old Talmud, the Babylonian and Jerusalem Talmud accessible. He made Maimonides, all the books of Maimonides accessible. He made the Mishnah accessible. He made the Tanya accessible. He made every important book in the Jewish canon accessible to all. I think that is a fulfilled life, no doubt. And therefore, you're right. I think that when death was knocking on his door, he wasn't too concerned. I've heard him say many times that he has plans for the next 140 years. He said this 10 years ago at the conclusion of his Talmud, where they celebrated him and his lifetime achievement. And he said, well, I'm not done. I have plans for the next 140 years. Now, if God decides to come and take me before that, I'll be just okay with that, because I recognize that that's not my department. That's his department. And if he decides to come and take me, I'll be ready. I will have lived life to the best, in the best way I could. And in a way, when we live life like that, when we take each and every day seriously, and we jump on every opportunity, and again, we fulfill our purpose to the very best of our ability, then when death comes around, we won't be too concerned. Because as he mentioned, one who is concerned about life will not be concerned about death. One who is not concerned about life will be concerned about death. So that's to relate to this email. Now, again, I know, Janet, did we receive any other emails? Otherwise, again, we can open.
No, we have not. Let me just check and see if anything came in the last couple. No, but I mean, we can open it up for everyone here to just ask.
Right. Okay. So you can either chat your question, your filling those dots of what would Rabbi Stein say about this and this, or you can unmute yourself. But let's try to do this as flowingly and smoothly as possible.
Rabbi Allouche, I have a question.
Yes, Hannah.
It's Hannah. So 2 things is I've been watching so much about his past. He was an amazing, much more so than I thought, because I watched him when he finished the Talmud and all that. But my question is, like, when we were saying Tehillim for him and praying for his recovery, what exactly does that mean? I'm very confused with that.
So what does it mean that we were praying for his recovery?
Because years ago,
it doesn't look like it helped, you're saying.
Well, I don't want to talk about my past, but I've heard people talk that when somebody is at that stage of life, that you should just accept it and say, okay, you lived a good life. You know what I'm saying. So right. How do I accept the fact that obviously I prayed, I was hoping it would be okay? Where can you explain that to me?
Sure.
Or us?
Okay. So I'm going to quote since Rabbi Steinsaltz is a theme here, I'm going to quote his wife. His wife, on the day of his passing, she said as follows. His wife I know well. Her name is Sarah. She is French originally, but Russian. If you really go to her roots, comes from an illustrious Hasidic family, the Azimov family. But his wife said, yes, we might think that our prayers did not help. Everyone, the whole world prayed. We prayed for his full and speedy recovery. Not just after his stroke, but especially during the last week of his life, where he had acute pneumonia, and that's really what caused him to die. But so we might think she said that all these prayers did not help, but she said two things. One, they helped on some level. Not all prayers are realized the way we want them to be realized. They're certainly all realized in a certain way at a certain time, a certain sphere, but maybe not in a way that is fully revealed and understandable to us. So they'll be realized somehow or some way. That's what she said. And number two, she said there's no doubt that her husband himself, knowing her husband, will come and thank each one that prayed for him and that did mitzvahs for him in his own way from heaven. And he'll find a way to not just say thank you. That's the cheap way of thanking, but of really doing thank you. He'll find his way to do that. So prayer we believe that prayer is an effect. There's no doubt. Now, does it have the ultimate effect that we want it to have? Not always. Not always do our prayers realized. Unfortunately, we don't have that power. I mean, we don't have a magic stick that just makes things happen with prayer. It doesn't exist. It hasn't existed in history. But we do believe that prayer changes something. No heartfelt is renounced. That's what the Talmud says. That all prayers that come from the heart are accepted. Now, how God will decide to realize those prayers, department again, we don't know. We have to pray for the result that we want, but if that's not the result that we get, we have to somehow believe that there's a different result that will occur somehow, somewhere, sometime, some sphere. Yeah, good question, Hannah. Anyone else?
There's one
Can I
on the
say
chat.
something?
Sorry,
Yeah.
excuse
Yeah.
me.
ahead.
There is one on the chat.
Oh,
If you
yeah,
want
I see
to,
it.
yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. So how did I meet the? That's a great question. So I first met Rabbi Steinsaltz when I was 7.5 years old. He had come to France, where I was living at the time, to give a lecture, and my father schlepped me to the lecture, and I was struck by his holiness. It was like really like a lightning had hit me. And at the end of the lecture, I actually went and asked him a question. And then I was further struck by the way he was able to relate not just to the professors and the intellectuals in the room and rabbis and this, but also to a young 7-year-old boy, as if he was the most important boy. And just that short interaction already sealed the deal for me, so to speak. But I didn't revisit our relationship until much later on, or relatively much later on, which was at the age of 13, when after living in South Africa, so when I was 8, my family moved to South Africa, and then we made Aliyah. We moved to Israel when I was 13 and a half, shortly after my bar mitzvah. And then I was enrolled in his school, in his middle school first, and then in his high school yeshiva. Then I had the privilege really of interacting with him. And I remember that for my bar mitzvah, I went for a talk with him. I wanted to see what this is all about. And I spoke to him then, and that continued and furthered the relationship. And then whenever I had an issue, I really spoke to him, and he became my mentor. And he's guided me through every crossroad in life and every small and big decision, I would say. And it continued to guide me with my marriage, with my wedding. I presented Esther, my beloved wife, to him, and he gave the okay. I told Esther, look, if he doesn't give the okay, I'm gonna have a big problem continuing this relationship. And I actually even told Esther, you can ask her that, maybe not such a nice thing to say, but I told her that you should know that you're not my first wife. I already am married to someone else. She was shocked and she said, who? I said, to Rabbi Steinsaltz. Not in the way you think, but in a very spiritual way.
In the same way we're married to God. Right?
No, she was completely okay with that, because she understood that she marries me, she'll be married to him too, and she was blessed with that. And then with our children, he guided me until 3 weeks ago. I asked him an important question regarding one of my children, what direction he should take, and he pointed me in the right direction, as he always did. Beyond, of course, all the learning that I accumulated from his greater than life wisdom, I made a point to go and see him whenever he came to the United States. Ever since I moved to America in 2002, when we moved to Atlanta, I said to myself, well, now that I'm not living close to Rabbi Steinsaltz, of course he was in Jerusalem, I'll make a point that whenever he comes to the United States, wherever he is, I'll go and visit him. And that's what I did. I knew that, you know, no matter what, even if a person lives until 120, our days are counted, our days are limited. So I knew that. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to go and maximize my opportunities with Rabbi Steinsaltz. And whenever he came to America, I did go and visit him. I think I missed 2 or 3 times, and he would come often. But I've been with him to New York, I've been with him to Chicago, to Memphis, Tennessee, to San Francisco, to California, to Miami, to you name the places. I always made a point, even if that put me in debt, I made a point to go and see him, because just to bask in his presence, and furthermore, to learn from his interactions with people, whether it was massive lectures at Yale University, for example, or Princeton, or just small interactions with people, to me, there was tremendous value in learning from this giant of a man. And thank God, really, I was blessed with that relationship. It's coming to mind, but speaking of his visits to New York, I remember him sitting with a lady, and the first question this woman asked Rabbi Steinsaltz is, Rabbi, I've heard so much about you. You're coined by the Time magazine as the once in millennium scholar, and Newsweek calls you a genius of the highest order. How does it feel to be so wise? And Rabbi Steinsaltz typically and so characteristically responded, I don't know, but when I get there, I'll let you know.
Like that.
That was the man and his humility.
That's great.
Can I say something? No, yes.
Yes, Inka, and then we have another question on the chat.
It is not a question. As it happens, last night I was reading on my oath one of my religious sites, and the rabbi was telling a story. So he's telling a story when he was 7 years old. His friend came to him and says, "Don't go to recess. I need your help." And he said, "Oh, okay." I mean, it's a long story. I'm trying to condense it. He says, "My mother was taken to the hospital this morning. She's going to give birth." So he says, "Yeah, what? So why do you need me?" He says, "We have to daven to ask Hashem. This time it should be a boy. I have 5 sisters. I'm the only one. I need a boy." So the 2 of them stayed in the room from recess, and they said to him, they were davening. And after class started again, and his father came into the classroom to announce that the baby was born. And they said, "Well, what do you have? What do you have?" "Oh, it's a girl." And the point of this story is the rabbi says that little girl that was born that day is now his wife.
Oh, beautiful. Very nice.
So that's where his prayer went. That's where his prayers went.
Right. Very good. Saying thousands of stories that are coming out. Speak. I was speaking to his son, Rabbi Meni. He's been in our community a few times, and he's overwhelmed by the amount of stories that people are telling him as he's sitting Shiva. But yeah, I mean, he was a co-worker, but to me, that wasn't, you know, that I think comes with the job, so to speak. It comes with holiness, no doubt. To me, the genius of Steinsaltz was his ability to be so up there and born up there. No one really could reach those levels, yet be so down here and relate to even the simplest man. And his obsession was really to connect to everyone at their level, whether it was, again, Nobel Prize scientists, and he met those, and I know people. I have a cousin who won the Nobel Prize in science, and he went to see Rabbi Steinsaltz, and Rabbi Steinsaltz was having a conversation about how the theory of relativities can be found in the Torah, a complicated, complex conversation that was way above my head. Yet he could relate to a young little child. I remember that when he visited us in Atlanta, I took him to the local school and the local preschool. And he was there among the children. He loved children. And they were in the middle of their snacks. And one child was eating a banana. And he took the peel of the banana and then said to the child, "Do you have a pencil or a pen?" And the child gave him a pen. And then he drew a nice smiley at the bottom of the banana, making the bottom of the face. And then Rabbi Steinsaltz gave peel with the smiley to this young child, maybe 4 or 5 years old. And he said, "You see, do you like this?" He says, "Yes, it's nice, it's nice." Rabbi Steinsaltz says, "Well, this should teach you a lesson in life that even from garbage, from rubbish, from unappealed, you can make a smiley face. You can make something positive."
Oh, I like that.
And that was his way of, he was obsessed with everyone and anyone, regardless of who that person was standing in front of him. I will say that of course is connected to his other main characteristic, and that is that it was never about him. And I wrote about that. It was really never, his ego was as small as it could be. I don't think it even existed. It was about, what is God wanting from me at this moment? God is not wanting for me to focus on myself. I'm here with a child, a 4 years old child. Yes, I can say, "Let me get out." But no, God has put me in the situation to make an impact. That's why. So it's never about me. That's why he never will. That's why he never rested. He knew that time is of essence. If God gave me this extra minute now in our day, it's for me to fill it up with as much meaning and as much purpose as I can. It was really never about him. And I think that was part of his secret. All right, I want to relate to this question. Do you remember the question of that? And then, of course, please continue to ask your questions. But it says as follows: do you remember the question you asked Rabbi Steinsaltz the first time when you were 8 years old? So as mentioned, I met him when I was almost 8 years old in France. And it was at the end of the lecture. And I asked him a question, a technical question about why is it that if you look at a Siddur, at a prayer book, sometimes God's name is mentioned with 2 Yuds, and sometimes God's name is mentioned with Yud, Hey, and Vav, Hey. And then I asked him also, why is it that when he's mentioned with 2 Yuds, then the vowels of those letters are different? One Yud as one type of vowel, and the other Yud type of vowel. Why are they 2? And responded that, this is rooted in Kabbalah, and that these 2 Yuds also refer to the Yuds that there are in each and every Jew. Every one of us has a Yud, as a unique soul, and every soul is the same. We're all, but we also have different purposes, different vowels. And he turned to me and he said, "Look, you have the same soul I have, but you have your purpose, I have my purpose. You have your vow, I have my vow." All right, any other?
Excuse me, Rabbi. Yes, there are. A couple of them went to me. One is, tell us about his wife and marriage.
So it's a great question. His wife, his wife, I think they married when he was 28 years old and she was maybe 27. So they've been married for a very long time. They had a beautiful marriage in my eyes. She, of course, sacrificed a lot to allow Rabbi Steinsaltz to be Rabbi Steinsaltz and to make this worldwide impact. Not just time, but also tremendous resources, emotional resources also. But I will say this, one thing maybe that gives us a little glimpse. That is, as mentioned, Rabbi Steinsaltz would work very late at night, 3 a.m. He would come home at about 4 or 5 a.m. What's amazing is that his wife would wait for him. She wouldn't go to sleep until he came home each and every night. And that shows the dedication that she had to him. In a way, it's reminiscent of Rabbi Akiva in the Talmud. But Rabbi Akiva left his wife for 24 years to go and study and become the legendary Rabbi Akiva that we know him to be. And when he came back after 24 years, to his town, to his wife, everyone had heard that this great sage is coming. Now, of course, this was before Facebook and before telephones and newspapers, and no one really knew how this Rabbi Akiva is going to look like. 24 years is enough time to change a person, at least physically. Anyway, Rabbi Akiva is coming. Everyone knows this great sage is coming to town, and his wife comes out to greet this great sage. Now, she's guessing it's her husband, but no one knows who this great sage is and whether it is really indeed Rachel's husband. Anyway, she comes, there's a massive crowd, and she approaches him, and no one, and then at some point when she's quite close, people don't let her go through. They just don't. I mean, there's too much crowd. And Rabbi Akiva notices her. And then Rabbi Akiva says to the big crowd, let her come right through. She's my wife. And let her come right through, because you should know all that I have is really hers. She allowed me to be who I am today. And I would say that that's the truth about Rabbi Steinsaltz's wife. All that he has is also hers. She enabled it in the most beautiful, gracious way. What's the other question?
The other question is, do your brothers also have a special relationship with the rabbi? Did they have one?
Well, you'd have to ask them if it's as special. We have this competition going on. So they did have a relationship with the rabbi. Rabbi Steinsaltz married all of us. He's the one who officiated at all of our weddings until his stroke. My youngest brother was married by the chief rabbi of Russia, Rabbi Lazar. But Rabbi Steinsaltz was in attendance. He couldn't marry them because he couldn't function fully. But so we do have this special relation with Rabbi Steinsaltz. I believe that I had the most special one of all. But you can ask them if they're listening to us or listening to this recording, then I dare them to prove me otherwise.
Rabbi, but you're the only one that became a rabbi. But I have a question, another question, yeah. Unless somebody else has a question. Okay, so I have been listening, like I said, to Rabbi Steinsaltz, and of course I had the honor of studying with him in Israel when we went as a group, and also in Chicago. And my brother had a relationship with him. But my question is, he's such a soft-spoken person, just amazing. So did you ever see him get upset, or like, you don't have to tell us why?
No, sure.
But
sure.
What was it like to be around him when he was upset?
Look, that's another facet of Rabbi Steinsaltz. He was a man of truth. Not just that he lived truth. Every iota of his being was truth. But he was a man who also didn't hesitate to tell you the truth in your face. He hated superficiality. He couldn't stand embellishments and beating around the bush. Did he ever get upset in a way that he raised his voice? No, I never heard him raise his voice. In a way that he got angry, like in a rage? No, not at all. Did he get upset and tell the truth as it was? Absolutely. In that sense, yes. I could think of a lot of very, very harsh things he would say to people, almost as a shock treatment, we call it. But he knew exactly how to say it, to whom to say it, when to say it, almost like a surgeon. He knew how to exactly give you that injection so that it creates a positive effect and a negative one. It may have hurt, like an injection, like a surgery, but it was the most healing thing that people could experience. I myself experienced his harshness. I remember being 16 years old, and there was a Hasidic Farbrengen, and he was the speaker. And at one point, I came to ask him a personal question, and I even wrote it down for him, I think, in a piece of paper, and then handed it over. And then I came to him among everybody, and he said to me, "I can't speak to you right now." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because your head is full of bugs and flies and all sorts of things. So you're not receptive." Now, you could say, "Wow, that's so harsh. That's so terrible. Whoa." But I'll tell you this, it was the most healing thing for me. Because it's true, he was right. I was 16 years old. I was a teenager. like any other good teenager, and I was quite rebellious. I mean, I don't know if as rebellious as it gets, but quite rebellious. And he almost, you know, shook me, and he said, "Excuse me, your mind is full of bugs. Maybe first get rid of those bugs, and then we can talk." And that was the most healing thing. And he was very harsh with others, and he was very sharp, very witted. I mean, I can tell you another example. You again might say, "Oh, this is a terrible thing," but I remember him giving a beautiful piece of advice to a dear friend of mine who's a world lecturer. And when he first started his career, this friend came to Rabbi Steinsaltz to ask for advice. And Rabbi Steinsaltz, again, without mincing any words, he said to him, "Look, I'll tell you what the problem with lecturers are, and I'm afraid this is going to happen to you. You're going to lecture and lecture and lecture, and after 30 years, you'll be so good at it that all you'll need is your helper to remind you just a second before you're speaking what the topic is, and you'll be able to say beautiful things about that topic. And then after 30 years, you'll go home and you'll look at yourself in the mirror, and all you'll see is a mouthpiece moving. And then you'll know that you're officially dead." Now, that was his advice. What did he mean by that? Very harsh. What he meant by that is that if you become robotic in your lecturing, then after 30 years, all you'll see is a mouthpiece moving, and you'll be officially spiritually dead. But make sure that although you lecture and although you'll be invited, that you always spend time to learning more and more and more, to developing your inner self. Otherwise, you'll be dead after 30 years, spiritually dead. So you could say that's very harsh. He told another friend of mine, who's a rabbi/lecturer, and he said to him, again, I mean, I can think of many harsh things he said. Maybe this is worth repeating or not worth repeating. But he said to him, "Look, you're going to lecture around the world, and people invite you, and they're going to clap their hands after the lecture. But remember, after all, that sometimes being this type of lecturer is like being a prostitute. They invite you, they pay you, but then they close the door behind you and they forget about you. So don't forget," and this was his point, "to surround yourself with people that really care about you." Now you can say that's very harsh. Whoa, a rabbi speaking about prostitutes. How dare he? But he made this point to this person again. He knew exactly to whom, how, when, etc. And he delivered such sharp wisdom that really shook the person to become better, to be better, to do better. So again, I could think of many other examples, but that's when he would become not angry, but he would become unleashed. Any other questions or ideas? Yes, Janet.
Just how old was he when he became a rabbi?
So it's it's a great question, because his upbringing is really surreal. If you don't mind, I'll get to that.
Yeah, I actually do want to know that.
But he was born in a very secular family. In fact, his parents were communist socialists. His father himself went to fight with the socialists in Spain at the beginning of the century. And they failed. This was before the Second World War. And he then moved to Israel and was a Zionist, but communist. And that's the parents he came from. They spoke Yiddish at home. That was his mother tongue, because they originally came from Poland. I mean, not he was born in Jerusalem, but his parents originally came from Poland. And he grew up in a family that was very communist and secular, as mentioned. Now, his father knew the value of knowledge, and he said to him, "Look, I want you to study the Talmud." And he even told him, "I want you to study the Talmud to know what you'll be fighting against." And at one point, Rabbi Steinsaltz even said, "My father taught me to be a skeptic. And I became so skeptic that I became skeptic of skepticism." So at the age of 14, he had this turn in his life, and he said, "You know what, I want to go and study in yeshiva." And his mother was against it. "How dare you? We don't believe in that route." And he said, "No, I want to go and study in yeshiva. That's my calling." And she said to him, fine, as long as you can continue to study chemistry and mathematics and philosophy and everything else he was doing, then you can go. And he went to a Chabad yeshiva, and there he was influenced tremendously by some of the greatest Hasidim or pious sages lived in those times. One of them was Rabbi Shlomo Chaim Kesselman, Rabbi Nachum Sosonkin, very well known names in the Chabad circle, tremendously pious people, and he remained committed to that lifestyle, and he became more and more and more observant. And he continued his PhD in chemistry and his teaching of mathematics. He was a teacher of mathematics. But he continued in that route too. At the age of 23, he became the youngest principal of a school in the history of the state of Israel. Then he established his own school, I think at the age of 29. Became a rabbi, I believe, at the age of 27, something like that, maybe 26. Yeah.
Did his home, before he moved out and when he became religious, did his parents kind of conform to more of his ways for him?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, I mean, his parents were very proud of him, even though they lived a different lifestyle. They were very proud of him to the point that when Rabbi Steinsaltz began to study, to take upon himself this massive project of translating the entire Talmud, project 45 years, he did it single-handedly before anyone did it. Today, the other editions, but he really was the trailblazer, and translate again, made this backbone of Jewish literature accessible to all. But when he began translating the Talmud, his father was the chairman of that organization. And his father was the one who also made him the connection with the mental officials that encouraged him to continue and that helped him a little bit. Yeah.
But there's a wonderful YouTube that I watched about the rabbi where he was accepting, when he finished his Talmud writing, you know, after 45 years, it was fascinating. So if anybody wants, it's on YouTube. And
Right.
the other question I had, which I wrote to you about, the question about tonight, what exactly, I'm confused about what makes a Chabad rabbi a Chabad rabbi?
It's a good question. How do you measure Chabad? Like, how do you measure that term? So, look, first and foremost is someone who adheres to the philosophy of Chabad. What is the philosophy? That's a different question, but that's one. Two, people may follow those customs too. Not just the way they dress, but maybe also the way they conduct their Passover Seder with the restrictions on food and so on, to those details. Third, I think it's someone also who's in that milieu, right? Who studied under the Chabad movement and then continued on. And fourth, I think it's someone also that is connected, sees the Rebbe as their personal Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe I'm speaking about. Yeah.
So are you a Chabad rabbi or not? Not to put you on the spot, but I find it very, because people always ask me, is your rabbi Chabad? Is he Orthodox? I said he's a Jewish rabbi.
It's interesting because they asked the same question of Rabbi Steinsaltz. Is he Chabad? He dresses like Chabad, but he's not completely and this and that. And I say that Rabbi Steinsaltz is a nonconformist, and I try to be a nonconformist too. So, does he have siblings? If so, did they follow his path as well? That was the question here. So he doesn't have siblings. He was an only child. His only child, Aurelian, only child. Now, I will say this, that he has many spiritual siblings, thousands of spiritual siblings. He related to everyone as his own brother and sister. Remember him going to Siberia, to some town. I don't even remember the name of the town in Siberia. And the local governor came to greet him and welcome him. And he asked him, so what did you come do here? I came to visit my family. Now, he had no family, but he referred to the Jewish community there. That's who he came to visit. He came to do much more, but he came to visit family. That's how he related to everyone. So he had a lot of spiritual siblings. Actual biological siblings, no. Any other questions you received, Janet?
No, I was just checking. Nope.
Any
No,
other questions
nothing
anyone may have on their minds? No.
No, nothing more. No.
Okay, so look, a few things. I want to encourage everyone, first and foremost, to set the tribute tomorrow evening. You probably received the email. This is a tribute with world speakers. Rabbi Telushkin will be with us. Rabbi Yossi Jacobson will be with us. Avram Fried, the famous singer, will be with us. Racheli Frankel will be with us. Rabbi Meni, Rabbi Steinsaltz's son, will be with us. And it will be a tribute for Rabbi Steinsaltz at the conclusion of the Shiva. They rise from the Shiva tomorrow morning. So tomorrow evening we have this tribute.
That's at 8 p.m., Rabbi?
That's at 8 p.m. tomorrow, yes.
Okay.
And maybe I'll send you the flyer, Janet, and we can send it to our group.
Okay, sure.
Then if you want to join us, I'll send you another flyer. I'm speaking this evening for a community in Montreal, but you're more than welcome to join us about Steinsaltz. It's a tribute for him also, alongside some other students of his, devout students of his. And that's not tonight, that's tomorrow. So the main tribute that I was just speaking about is at 8 p.m. tomorrow. This tribute with Montreal is at 5:30 p.m. tomorrow night, and I'll say it for me. Tonight, Q&A. Weekly Q&A is usually on a Thursday night, but to tonight because of the tribute tomorrow evening. So please join us for our Q&A tonight at 7:30 p.m.
Rabbi
And like Hannah is suggesting here, I also suggest everyone to Google Rabbi Steinsaltz, Adin Steinsaltz, to learn more. There's so much that has been written about him, not just during his lifetime, but even more so now since he's passing. So much that's coming out. I mean, it's amazing it's amazing to me how we really, truly, human nature only truly appreciates people after they die. And it's so unfortunate, really so unfortunate. But at least it's better late than never. But now so many people appreciating the tremendous impact that Rabbi Steinsaltz had on the entire world, and people are writing about him, not just the New York Times and the Pope, as mentioned, and Bibi and whoever else, but even just people that interacted with him on a one-on-one basis. And it's worthwhile reading all these amazing anecdotes.
Rabbi, I'm sorry to keep talking, but I just got a text from a friend from Pittsburgh, and there's a session today at 1 o'clock with Rabbi Shmuley with you.
With me,
Look at
today at 1 o'clock, we have
Don't
a
look-
30 rows.
But can you see it? Oh, wait.
Oh, no, that's next week. Yeah, next week. Next week, yes.
Oh, it's the 9th.
Next
I'm
week, I'll
sorry.
be
I didn't.
speaking for the Valley Bet Midrash. Yes, that's right.
Rabbi
My girlfriend from-
Allouche,
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, sir.
I had a question. I was going through either Facebook or Gmail, and I thought I saw that you did a thing with Pat McMahon, the
Yes.
God Show. Was that
Yeah.
recently?
Yeah, we put it in the email yesterday. I'll have my, I don't manage my Facebook page. I'll have my administrator put it in. That's
All
fine.
right, because I saw
Yeah.
it for a minute, and then now I can't find it, and I thought I'd like to listen to it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah, I was on the God Show on Sunday. We had a good time. It was nice. Yeah, thank you. You know what?
So
I'll send
you'll-
that to you too,
wait,
Jen. I'll send it
So
to you.
you'll send us the link,
Yes.
right?
It's
Yes,
on the email from yesterday. It's on that email from yesterday.
yes, that's right. That's
I
right.
couldn't find it. I saw it, and then I couldn't find it again.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, two more questions before we conclude here. So question number one is, how would Rabbi Steinsaltz define resilience in these times? How would he define resilience? I think we mentioned that at the beginning. Resilience is focusing on yourself and what you can do, not what you can't do. And then once you find what you can do, then you have to do it in the very best of your ability. You have to give it your all. I think that's how you would define resilience. Next question, what happened to the rabbi after he published his Talmud and was criticized, right? Many criticized Rabbi Steinsaltz for taking the Talmud out of the yeshiva walls and making it accessible to all. Rabbi Steinsaltz was very, very much supported by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the late Lubavitcher Rebbe, who encouraged him to continue and not pay attention. And I don't believe he paid too much attention. Yes, I do believe it hurt him. I could see it on him each time he spoke about it, but it didn't slow him down whatsoever, and he continued with tremendous determination to publish his Talmud. And then how did he define resilience in reference to assimilation while keeping your Jewish identity? I think Rabbi Steinsaltz was the embodiment of that. That on the one hand, you are a man of the world. He was a walking encyclopedia. He could have, as mentioned, he could be a scholar in residence and have honorary doctorates from universities across the world, which he did. Yet he knew very well that he was above it, that he was as Jewish as one can be. And if there's such a thing, and really sing the Jewish voice among all the circles that you interact with. Maybe in answer to this question, in conclusion of our class and our tribute today to Rabbi Steinsaltz, but I'll mention what Rabbi Steinsaltz once told me, and he wrote about it too, and that is that really if he had to sum up his entire mission of doing all the things that he's doing into one idea, it will be this idea as follows. And the idea is that he's just trying to change a melody that has just 3 words to it. Those 3 words are, I am Jewish, or I am a Jew. Some people, he said, sing these 3 words with the melody like, I am Jewish. It means I have a genetic disease. It's terrible, but I got to live with it. What can I do? And he wants to change that melody and make it a melody that is joyous and full of passion, so that when you sing I am a Jew, you sing it with so much pride and so much, again, happiness and joy and fervor, that it creates light and that illuminates the world. And that's really what he tried to do in his own words. And in a way, I think that if we are to really connect to Rabbi Steinsaltz, that's what to do too. To think of how sing that melody with that same fervor and joy. And at the same time, make sure that it sweetens the world around us. That we are those beacons of light, those symbols of Kiddush Hashem. The people will say, oh, I know this and this person. The Jewish people, I love Jews. They are so good. They are so kind. They are so warm, they are so illuminating, so radiant, that I too want to be Jewish, that I too admire Jews.